I once had a friend who had a farm up in the mid-north. Now, when he was a young man, his dream was to see snow. And eventually he was able to save enough and set out, only to discover that there'd been a lot of rain and there was no snow left. He was so disappointed. Actually, that's not the end of the story. While he was away, guess where it snowed? Right where he lived. Now, it may be that you can identify with that. You may have had plans and dreams, but they just didn't work out. It may even have been of your own making. Your hopes and dreams, they faded. They were broken, in fact, shattered. If you've ever felt like that, if you've ever been there, it's easy to understand how Jesus' followers felt when he was lifted up onto that cross. Their whole world just fell apart. It was not what they had ever envisaged or hoped for. During that first day of the week, there were some rumours. Some were talking about seeing Jesus, that he was alive. How could that be? They had seen him suffering on the cross. They had seen his lifeless body laid in the tomb. Jesus was dead. Certain. It was over. Completed. Finished. The end of the road. The dream was not just broken. It was shattered. Now that evening, the disciples met together in a locked room when Jesus suddenly appeared in their midst. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine if you were there? The grief that was there, the sorrow, it was suddenly turned on its head. Imagine the emotions of that moment. Now, while all this was happening, the disciple Thomas was not with them. He may have been off grieving, and we're not sure. But it seems he's been given a raw deal over the years. If I say the name Thomas, what comes immediately to your mind? I know. I think I heard you say Doubting Thomas. So what do we know about Thomas? Well, we know that he was a twin. In fact, he was called Thomas the Twin. But there's so much more to Thomas. In fact, he possessed enormous courage. When Lazarus died, Jesus was warned not to go near Jerusalem because his life was in danger. But he went anyway. It was Thomas. Thomas who said, "Let us also go, that we might die with him." Now that's only a brief statement, but it shows tremendous courage. What can you say about a man who says, if they kill him, they're going to have to kill me too? It takes a strong man to say that. John's Gospel mentions Thomas one other time just before the crucifixion. It was late on the Thursday evening in the upper room. Jesus had just washed the disciples' feet and he had given them the great command to love one another. Judas had already gone to begin what he had to do. The other disciples remained, knowing that things were not going all that well. To those loyal disciples who stood by Jesus in this hour of trial, Jesus said to them, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God, trust in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I'm going there to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place I'm going." That's John 14, 1-4. Now Thomas was listening intently and quietly. Then in a moment of raw honesty, he blurts out, "Lord, we don't know where you're going, so how can we know the way?" That's Thomas. They are the words of an honest man. So the picture that we have of Thomas on the eve of the crucifixion is this. He's a brave man, intensely loyal and deeply committed to Jesus. If need be, he's ready to lay down his life to give his all for his master. It may help to remember how those who knew Jesus best reacted to the news of his resurrection. None of the disciples believed at first. Simply, they were not expecting a resurrection. While it's true that Jesus had spoken about his death and his impending resurrection, being raised again back to life, Thomas, and in fact none of the disciples actually got it, but Thomas never doubted the miraculous. He had seen many of Jesus' greatest miracles, but this one was too big to take someone else's word for it. He had to see it to believe it. And he had to be sure it was Jesus, not a dream or a vision, but really Jesus. Now, after all these years, Thomas still has that reputation. Doubting Thomas, we call him. 8 days later, yes, 8 days after Jesus first appeared to the disciples, he came a second time, and this time Thomas was with them. Jesus said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands? Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." We need to remember that Jesus knew all about Thomas's doubts, and he came just so that Thomas could be sure. And you know, he comes to all who are unsure. Everyone who's unsure is welcome at the empty tomb. Thomas went from doubt to declaration. He said, "My Lord and my God." What a transformation. But that's what Jesus does for you and for me. Now, my hope is that you'll never be defined just by a word, because you're much more than that. I trust as you ponder this, that you go into this week and have a wonderful week. May God richly bless you.